Welcome back to the Deliberate Exchange. My name is Chelsea, and I'm so glad that you are here listening. Today is one of those unscripted, no real direction kind of episodes, but I do have a topic that I want to speak to today, and that is about COVID. Kevin and I were talking about it the other day, and how everybody is very quick to move on and forward from it. And of course, as we know, it was only 6 years ago that literally we were locked down, told not to leave our homes, don't see our family, don't go outside of your bubble, people are dying, bad things are happening. Like, this was a big deal. I remember I was alone and living in the city. I was single and living in the city. And I had my best friend at the time. And like, we were contemplating, like, do we like room together? Because I had a house and she had an apartment and was having like a breakup with her boyfriend at the time. We were stocking up on stupid shit. Like, I remember us going to a health food store and I bought hair dye because like that was important, and not really knowing like what was going to happen, and also remembering like how terrifying that was. Like, when everything on the news is like tracking death counts and urging us to get vaccinated, and as I said, don't leave your home and don't go outside and 6 feet apart and all that shit. And how can we just move on from that? How can we just pretend like it didn't happen? Like, it impacted lives, and for a bunch of different reasons. For me personally, I remember, as I said, being so afraid of what was happening and not knowing. I remember when the government was telling us to get vaccinated, I thought like, well, of course, like the government, like I trust them. Like, this is before my critical thinking really kind of came online. And I remember the judgment that I had of people. And like, that's one of my biggest takeaways. Or maybe not takeaways, but like I think about this often, is how much I judged other people. Like, if they were wearing a mask, but it was not covering their nose, judge. Like, what do they know? Like, clearly they're an idiot. Or if they were walking down the wrong way of a grocery store aisle, like, can't they see the arrows? What an idiot. I also thought that the people protesting the vaccinations were idiots, like, to be perfectly honest. And that was a sentiment that was shared by a lot of people that I knew and a lot of people that I didn't know. Like, I remember being on a patio in town here, and there was some kind of protest happening as we were eating lunch on this patio, because we were allowed to be on the patio because we had our vaccination passport, which is fucking wild to think about. And so we're allowed to be on this patio, and there is a protest happening about like not mandating the vaccinations. And there's a woman walking down like the middle of the street with a Canadian flag on like a pole, and, you know, talking about don't get vaccinated, or like our body, our choice. Like, I can't remember exactly what she was shouting, but there was somebody on the patio with us, like not with us, but adjacent to us. And they yelled at this woman who was in the street protesting. And this woman said to her, "I'm an ER nurse, and if you come into my ER, I will not treat you." And the other patrons on the patio at the time were cheering her. Like they were really applauding the fact that like this woman really took a stand against the anti-vaxxer that was in the middle of the street and really proven, showing her a lesson. And like all of that is really, really weird to think about. That we're celebrating a woman who says, because you are choosing what to put in your body, I won't treat you in the ER that I work at, which I think is like against like a Hippocratic oath that they fucking take in the first place. But that was like that was the fear mongering that was happening. Because like we later learned that so much of what was purported to us wasn't actually rooted in truth and science. And wherever you fall on getting vaccinated, like, I can appreciate your stance on that. I can appreciate that you want to get vaccinated. But also, like, I think that what we missed so much in that period was that, like, we all have a right to choose. We have a right to choose to get it. We have a right to choose not to get it. Now, full disclosure, I got both vaccination shots that the government mandated that we get. I remember taking a stupid selfie with my vaccination passport because like I felt like I was doing like the right thing. I had elderly parents that I didn't want to put in any danger. And shortly thereafter, getting both vaccinations, I developed issues, and to some degree they exist still today, but I believe it is a vaccine injury, and it's really hard to get doctors to sign off on that. Because like it was something that wasn't rigorously tested. And I don't think that it was a wise decision, and I really do regret getting it in the first place. But this whole idea that anybody who decided not to get it got labeled so harshly, of course, like I said, by me. I thought that people were idiots and they were like scourge of the earth if they weren't getting vaccinated. But really, like majority of those people were just like, wait a minute, like I need to see more information. I need to see more data before I put this into my body. And those who had the critical thinking and who had or maintained their sovereign choice of not getting vaccinated were labeled as misogynists or grandma killers or racists. Like, and I know that firsthand because I know a lot of people who did not get vaccinated and they were impacted in those ways. And then we can talk about all the people who lost their jobs, like their literal livelihood because of their autonomous choice to not get vaccinated. I know so many people who literally lost their jobs or lost their relationships or lost their family because of their fundamental right to choose what goes in their body. And that makes me so sad that I was part of that. But again, like I was in 2020, I was really starting to take the blinders off and really hone in my critical thinking skills. And it wasn't really developed then, which is why I had those groupthink opinions. It's why I admonish the people who were going the wrong way in the grocery store, or who were standing a little too close in the lineup to get into the grocery store. Like, it was just such a weird time, and now we're just moving along like it's normal. And people lining up to get boosters for the new strain of COVID. And again, like, that's your choice. If you want to go and do that, fill your boots. But why did we think it was okay that we would demonize people who were just choosing what they believed was best for them. And of course, like, it swings the other way. There are people who have wild conspiracy theories about the vaccination, and like, I'm not talking about those people, because like, there's going to be weird people in every group. But I think what really stands out is our willingness to just like move on, but like not really taking into account how detrimental that time period was and how it put our systems into a state of survival and chronic stress. Like, even myself, like, I remember running on a trail where I was living, and I would hold my breath as people would pass by me. And of course, like, we'd all do the polite thing and make sure there's lots of room and whatnot. And like, I was just operating out of fear, and that sticks with you unless you learn how to start dealing with your nervous system and stored stress and open stress loops. That shit stays in your body. And it's not like the ones because of course, like, now there has been more data, there has been more testing done, and the stance has changed about the efficacy of the injection and the efficacy of social distancing and transmission and all that kind of stuff. But we're not apologizing to the people who were ostracized from their friends and family or workplaces because of their decision. And I find that really, really like a sad mark in our world and in our humanity, that we aren't able to extend the courtesy that somebody is going to choose what's best for them without, again, demonizing where they think they got their information from and all that kind of rhetoric that accompanies this particular choice. That still perpetuates, right? Like, the minute you see, I know some people, the minute they see somebody who was involved in the convoy that went to Ottawa, and they automatically want nothing to do with that person. And again, like, that's like their right to go and protest peacefully, civilly. And yes, there are the odd bad apple, but like, that's not what we're talking about. It's so weird that we just move on from this without taking into consideration the collateral damage. Like, for some people, the pandemic was a beautiful gift. For me, like, if you've been listening to these podcasts, you know that I quit drinking in January 2020. You know that I got fired in February of 2020. And then in March of 2020, the world shut down. And I could have taken that as an excuse to go back to my old ways, but I used that time as a significant opportunity to do work on myself and to start healing. But for some people, again, because of the fear and the boredom, or the mix of the two, a lot of people ended up, with the COVID-15, or they ended up with a far worse drinking problem than they had going into it. Like, I hear a lot of those stories of people who started drinking way heavier during the pandemic because there was nothing to do. And with my insight now as to how the nervous system works and how stress works, they were stressed because they were scared, because the news was perpetuating like this scary situation, and they did what was probably normalized, right? We're scared. We don't know what to do with that. So we drink to numb, to avoid, to not deal with it, to just put a pause button on the very fucking scary reality that our world was at that time. So I don't think that it's easy for us to just roll over and forget. I think that a lot of damage was done, and there are not a lot of answers to that. And I don't think that there ever will be. I don't think there'll be like a collective, like, oh man, like you who decided not to get vaccinated. Like, let's not call them an anti-vaxxer. Let's just call them somebody who decided to not get vaccinated. And of course, there are people who are anti-vaxxers, and some of them are fucking crazy. But again, I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about very smart and diligent people that I know personally who opted not to get that. And I think that they are some of the most strong, resilient, critical thinkers and principled people that I've ever met. And I wish that I had had an ounce of that during the pandemic so that I could have made a different choice back then, because then I wouldn't maybe have the health side effects that I believe to be attributed to the vaccination. And I'm also curious, like, for those of you listening to this, like, how this particular episode will be perceived. And I'm sure there's some people that are rolling their eyes and thinking that, maybe I've lost the plot point, but also I'm able to look back and see where I was acting in groupthink, where I was, right? Like, from an evolutionary perspective, we are driven to capitulate. We want to be connected with others. We want to be part of the greater group. And anything that contradicts that or puts us against the greater group is threatening to our system. And so we will go against what we might feel is right so that we can still belong. Because the opposite of that is really, really threatening. And I think that's an important piece to highlight about the people who felt like they needed to get vaccinated, and also the strength that the people who chose not to and to be admonished and cast aside because of their choice makes them like really, really significantly strong, in my opinion. So I'm not going to forget about COVID. I'm not going to forget about the time that it was. I know that COVID absolutely unlocked so much goodness for me. And like I said, it allowed me to dive deep into my healing and growth journey. And it also made possible like a bunch of different things. Like, I don't think that if it was for the pandemic, I would have moved back home and in with my mom. I don't think that I would have met my partner, because his partner at the time had said, you know what, if you don't get vaccinated, then we're done. And he's one of those principled, really, really strong individuals. And I reaped the benefits of that, because then he was single and I was able to meet him. And I was able to have my critical thinking back online when I met him. So we were able to have an open dialogue, like, yeah, I got vaccinated, and like, oh yeah, I didn't. And that it didn't mean anything about who he was or who I was. And also that I'm willing to say that I got it wrong, that I was calling a spade a shovel, or whatever that line is, and I got it wrong. I really think that I was overly judgmental in those times, but that was driven out of fear. So let me know your thoughts on this episode. It's a little more subdued and there's no like big whammy lesson, but I just wanted to kind of turn the mic on and speak honestly about like this really significant period of time in our lives and how we seem to be glossing over it, when I think that there's so much more to it that should be talked about from both ends. So, in the meantime, breathe it in, be deliberate, and please be good to yourself.